He's Mr. Scott Petrak from the Chronicle Telegram, brownzone.com, where you can read all of Scott's coverage of the Browns coaching search. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Jeffrey. And that is not true about Daryl. Hi, Daryl.
Hello, Scott. That's very kind of you to say, and very awkward of Jeff to put you on the spot like that. Now I immediately regret not putting out the promo I wanted to on social media.
Yeah.
So Jeff last week was taking a selfie of the sweatshirt he was wearing, so I took a picture of Jeff taking said selfie, and I was going to put that out as the promo, like, I'm in with this guy today, wish me luck. I didn't do that because I like, respect, and admire fella. Jeff, and then you do that to me, to Scotty.
Well, I was wearing a Beaumont Golden Gators sweatshirt, and I was taking a picture to send to my buddy in Beaumont.
I know. I still have the photo on my phone.
Don't send that out. Scott, Mike McDaniel.
Mm-hmm.
First question, if I'm the Haslams. Mike, it's really good to see you. Why did you write the 32-point presentation as to why Kyle Shanahan should be let out of his gig?
Yeah, and I think he would say, well, Ray Farmer's not here anymore, so it's water under the bridge. I mean, that was, when I reflect back on that, I can't believe it's been 11 years since then. But, I think it was way more about Ray Farmer than it was the Haslams or the Browns organization. Kyle Shanahan, I believe, felt forced to play Johnny Manziel and burden with Johnny Manziel, and felt the Ray Farmer influence that was too much influence, right? The whole calling down to the sideline during games. So I think he just realized what was coming, and the organization's push to play Johnny, and wanted no piece of that. And Mike McDaniel was on board, and he's been buddies with Kyle forever, and followed him to Atlanta, and then followed him to San Francisco before he wound up in Miami. So, I don't think that that's something that keeps Mike from taking this job, because I really do think it was, if not all, mostly about Ray Farmer.
Are there 32 reasons why Mike McDaniel should actually want this job?
Well, 32 is a lot.
Well, there's a theme here, Scott.
Yeah. Does each million count as a reason? Because then you're probably up at 10 or 12, and that's a lot of reasons. They got a really good defense. I don't know how many jobs are going to get offered to Mike McDaniel. I know that he's doing the interview circuit, and if he doesn't get a head job, then plenty of teams would want him as a coordinator, because he's obviously a really smart offensive mind, and you see all the motions and the run game. He's had a ton of success in the run game, and a lot of the Kyle Shanahan ingredients that we've seen. But I think he gets looks across the league. It's tough for me when a guy gets fired. And we're seeing the same thing with Kevin Stefanski. Like, the Kevin Stefanski, Mike McDaniel resumes are not that different.
No.
Right? They're young guys, offensive minds, get jobs, have instant success. This success doesn't last. You're burdened with an injury-prone, highly paid quarterback, and then ownership goes, yeah, we can do better. So I think there's a bunch of reasons to be intrigued by McDaniel. I don't know if it's a slam dunk that he gets a head coaching job this season.
With that in mind, he's here, and according to Adam Schefter, John Harbaugh is considering the Browns. What do you think the likelihood is that Harbaugh ends up here? And again, I think the only thing that would bring him here is he's had a deep desire in his life to coach the Cleveland Browns based on family history.
Yeah.
I can't think of any other reason.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess if there was a revenge factor, you wanted to play the Ravens twice a year.
Maybe.
You felt, right, you wanted to be close to that and inside the division.
He doesn't strike me as that kind of a guy, that it would be overly motivated by that.
I agree. And, he spent 18 years in Baltimore, and I think they were mostly good years, right? So I wouldn't get that from him either. I don't think that the Browns would be at or near the top of his list. I think there's just more attractive openings in this league, and it starts at quarterback. And, there are reports this over the weekend that, he was doing his scouting of Cam Ward and Jackson Dart. You could throw Shedeur Sanders in that mix with the Browns, but Sanders did not play as well as those other two guys.
No.
And he obviously wasn't nearly as high a draft pick as those other two guys. So it seems like a stretch to me. I don't know what the Browns' selling point would be, except, you had a great defense and, you got the 6th pick and the 24th pick, and we'll figure out a quarterback. I think it's just difficult from where the Browns are. And Andrew Berry, if you reread or re-listen to his press conference from a week ago, he talks about finding a coach that fits where the Browns are in this transition period. And I don't think that jives with where John Harbaugh is, right? John Harbaugh is 63. I'm sure he wants to win right now. Like, the Ravens were a Super Bowl favorite before the season. I don't know if he's interested in coming to a place where there's uncertainty at quarterback and you don't know exactly when that quote-unquote Super Bowl window opens. So I think it's a tougher sell for an established coach like that versus an unproven coordinator. And maybe the Browns change their timetable if they could get a guy like Harbaugh and they go all in on quarterback X, whatever that would be. And I'm fine with that. But where their thought process was a week ago, it just doesn't seem like that's a great fit for where Harbaugh is.
Scott, we're about up to 12 different names that have been tied to this job. Either the Browns have interviewed, are interested in interviewing, have scheduled interviews with. How many of them, though, do you think, because as you know, these things are also fact-finding missions as well as, coordinator interviews too. How many of these do you think are of the potential coordinator interview type disguised as head coach interviews?
Yeah, I think, first of all, when you think about Andrew Berry, I do think he's a due diligence, cast a wide net. That's just how he thinks. And I think he's probably always thought like that, but it was reinforced or taught to him by Paul DePodesta. That's how he ran his searches. So I think they're just identifying as many capable candidates as possible. Now, do I think there's 3 or 4 of those guys that they would hope that, man, if we interview this guy, maybe he winds up a coordinator. If we don't love him as a head coach, we don't think he's ready to be the head coach right now. Yeah, I think there's, at least, I don't know, 3 or 4 of those guys that could move up into that spot for the Browns. But I think at the crux is Andrew Berry is trying to talk to as many mostly young, smart candidates across the league, and then they'll kind of figure out what role fits best. But I don't think they're ruling out anybody for the head coach. But yeah, could it be secondary with a guy like Nate Shalasich, or however you pronounce his name? Sure.
With that in mind, that's the lead story on your website right now, brownzone.com. Browns interviewing or requesting an interview with the passing game coordinator, Nate Scheelhaas. Let's go with that for now, of the Rams. He's a really young dude. This leads me to think, do they have a Jim Schwartz dilemma here? If Jay Glazer's report is right, that the Browns are telling all candidates that we want to keep Jim Schwartz as the defensive coordinator, why don't you just hire Jim Schwartz then?
I do think they have a Schwartz dilemma. I don't think it's a good process to tell coaches that in the interviews. I guess it depends on how forcefully you say it. If it's, hey, if you're open to it, we love Jim Schwartz. We love where our defense is. We're not going to force you to do it, but, we think this guy is the right coordinator for this unit, and obviously they were really good this year. I don't think you can – I have a really hard time forcing that on a new coach. I just think it sets up poorly, because then there's a resentment as a coach. As soon as the defense struggles, as a coach, like, man, this wasn't my guy anyway. Is there conflict? Jim Schwartz has a strong personality. Does he get along with everybody? I just think it's a tough spot to put a coach in. I'm not saying it can't work. I don't think I would mandate it. And, last week Andrew Berry said he wouldn't mandate it, but maybe privately he is. So I think it's a tough spot. And when it comes back to should Schwartz just be the head coach, I would still say that that's the most likely scenario, because we know the Browns don't want to lose him. And could you find an offensive coordinator, whether it's Tommy Rees or one of these other young guys that you're interviewing, to fit with Jim Schwartz? And it feels like you have some sense of stability and continuity by keeping Jim Schwartz. You keep the defensive staff. You keep the best part of your team. I'm not saying I love that strategy, because if you're going to make big changes after winning 8 games over 2 years, maybe you should make big changes. But I feel like this process is leaning in that direction for all the reasons you mentioned.
Is it a tough spot to put Jim Schwartz in?
Not if he gets the job, it's not. But if you ask Jim to stay as defense coordinator after interviewing him for the head job and giving it to somebody else, then yeah, I think that is a tough spot. And I don't know what the talks that Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam have had with Jim Schwartz behind the scenes. But I think it's difficult to ask Jim Schwartz to just stay regardless of who the next coach would be. And I could certainly see a scenario where Jim goes, well, I could go coach with Kevin Stefanski somewhere else. I could go coach with, whoever else, somewhere else, where, maybe he goes to New England and coaches under Mike Vrabel, right? They had some issues, some health issues with their defensive coordinator. Jim Schwartz would have opportunities to be a defensive coordinator somewhere else. And if he didn't like the way this whole head coach search played out, I think he could make it known and make it difficult that, hey, even if I'm under contract, I don't want to be here. And that creates just a bad situation inside the organization.
All right, since you gave us who you think your favorite is, I'll give you mine, Scott, and tell me what you think of this. I think they're going to hire Dan Pitcher, the Bengals OC. He doesn't call plays, but you keep Jim Schwartz, and then you hire Todd Monken to come back and be the offensive coordinator. I think that's just my theory, just looking at who they've talked to, how they've gone about this process, listening to what Andrew said. Do you think something like that, where they keep Jim, they hire an unproven offensive-minded head coach, and pair him with an experienced offensive coordinator, do you think that is a path that could lead to success for the Browns?
I think it could. I certainly think I think Pitcher's a legitimate candidate here. I could see pairing him with Jim Schwartz. I struggle a little bit, Darryl, with bringing in the veteran offensive coordinator then, because Pitcher obviously knows what he's looking for in an offense. I know he hasn't called plays and it's Zach Taylor's offense.
Right.
But, do his philosophies mesh with a Todd Monken or whoever else that guy would be?
Right.
Are they on the same page? Would he want a chance to call plays for the first time? He's like, hey, now I'm the head coach. I'm going to call the plays. I think that those things would have to be worked through. Right? It did for a while. They went to the playoffs twice. People keep forgetting that.
Yeah.
So I just think that would be a dynamic that would have to, in a relationship that would have to be worked through. You interview Todd Monken for the head job, and they go, hey, no, now we're going to put you as the coordinator under a guy that's never been a head coach or never called plays before. I don't know how that dynamic works. I understand what you're saying, and I think that would be best for the organization is to find somebody like that. I'm not convinced that Todd Monken would be the right guy in that setup.
Scott, thank you, buddy. Good luck through the entire search, because I know you and Darryl and everybody else who covers the team for a living will be very busy.
Thanks, fellas.
Hang in. BrownZone.com, where you can read all of Scott's work